Hello, everyone, and welcome to another We Create EDU Hangout. I'm Jacqueline, and I am here with Nick, and we're going to be reviewing his channel today. And his channel is The Science Asylum. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your channel, and then we can dive into looking over some of the broader things about your channel?
Sure. So I mean, as you can gather from the name, my channel's a science channel, mostly physics, but I dabble in a few other things. And basically, it's a scripted comedy show where I play characters, mostly just clones of myself, and try to, put a little humor into science education.
Sounds good. And you've been doing this for a while, right?
Yeah, about 4 years now, a little over 4 years.
And your channel banner, is that all your different clones? I've seen some of them in the videos. I don't know if I've seen all of them yet.
It's most of them. They're not all in there. I sort of picked the best ones.
And then for your thumbnails, I see that it's mostly like trying to get eye capturing pictures, and you have little logos in different places, right?
Right.
And there's only a few that you ever, mainly if it's bloopers or comment responses, to like warn people, I guess, before they click on a video.
Right. So those always seem to mess up how the algorithm feeds my videos to people, so I don't know what to do about that. But I do try to make them look different than the rest of the thumbnails and titles and things, so people know what they're getting into when they click those.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Oh, and people in the chat, whether you're here now or whether you're watching this video in the next few days, feel free to leave comments about the banner and titles and description and all that kind of stuff. And when I was looking through your analytics, like I was telling you earlier, I think your titles are really good because you can see that, especially I think even your Adam one that you recently had, there's a jump in the beginning that are definitely your subscribers, and then it kind of trails, and then I can see the SEO building after. Like, there's definitely a lull, and then you can see that, oh, the algorithm's like, oh yeah, this is good for this topic, and it kind of picks it up.
Yeah, I was surprised at how successful that video was. It kind of caught me off guard.
And I think a lot of yours are also question based, which is probably really good for titles. Do you have questions about your thumbnails or titles or anything like that, or do you think you're pretty good with those?
I don't know. I mean, I try to experiment with the thumbnails. I like them better when I'm not in the thumbnails myself, but sometimes I see spikes in viewership when my face is in there, and I don't know what the deal with that is. But
which is interesting because your whole banner, instead of being like sciencey stuff, is all your clones too.
Right.
And you have, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, people seem to want to click the thumbnails that have my face, and so I just can't always work it in.
Yeah, that's what when they reviewed my channel, they were telling me that I needed to put my face in thumbnails because apparently that brings people in and adds more personality. But I'm the same with you. And your descriptions have a lot of, it looks like you put all your resources in, related videos, which is probably really good. I think that probably helps you link. Do you ever see in your analytics under suggested videos when you do that it links your videos together with those?
I do see that occasionally. It links my videos to each other a lot, and occasionally I'll put other people's videos in my description, and it'll link to them as well, and it'll suggest them in the bar on the side.
And some of your content builds upon itself, and I've seen you put cards to some of your older content. Do you know what the click-through rate is by any chance on your cards? Does that ever work?
I mean, I've checked it once or twice. I do get card clicks occasionally, but they don't seem to work very well. You know, yeah. I try everything
Yeah.
Since joining the Slack, I've actually adjusted a lot in my description, moving things around up and down, trying to put some good algorithm stuff near the top instead. But and that's helped a little bit.
So have you tried to put? I see there's a blurb at the top of most of them. Have you tried putting more keywords and stuff in there?
I have actually. I've tried to word the descriptions so that they don't sound like a list of keywords.
Right.
I don't want it to do that.
Right.
But I've tried to that just throws a bunch of keywords into a sentence, and
Yep.
that seems to be really good.
And I know that you've had this issue before, and we've brought it up a bunch of times to actual YouTube people. But how's the splitting out the comment responses going? How's that impacted your channel?
They do okay, but they do affect how many people end up viewing the video that follows them.
Mm.
And so the comment response videos do okay, but then, I mean, they do exactly how I expect them to do. But then the next video that I upload doesn't necessarily do so well. It takes a couple videos before it picks back up. And so I've tried experimenting with the format a little bit so that they're not just blatant comment response videos where they'll just be about a topic. I'll try to find a bunch of comments that relate to the same thing, and I'll make just a video that's a normal video, and I'll just include comments in them, and that's been much better.
Yeah, because I'm guessing what the algorithm's doing is less people click on your comment response, so the next video that comes up, it serves it to less people for its A/B test. Sadly,
That's how it goes.
I wonder how that works with. I know I did channel that's comment responses, but that's different. But like with your blooper videos and stuff, other channels do bloopers. I wonder if they have the same issues.
They might. I mean, I know Crash Course does them, but I think they have different people searching for their videos than other channels do.
Yeah. Vanessa Hill just put out like a bloopers video recently. I do think the thumbnail had Neil deGrasse Tyson in it, so that might help. But
right.
But she's pretty responsive on Twitter and stuff. So if you ever wanted to reach out and like ask her questions, because you had said in your channel review paper that you don't go through your analytics too much because it's hard to glean anything from it, and
right.
You want to compare to other people. I would gladly show you mine, but I'm much smaller than you, so it wouldn't help you a lot. So we need some of probably the bigger people to try and help you figure some stuff out. So if anyone, if you do you have specific questions, because I know people like Draw Curiosity and sometimes shares some of her stats and asks other people.
Right. Well, I mean, I can look at them and I can see what topics are doing better than other topics on my own channel, but I don't necessarily know if I should do them because I don't know how those same topics do on other people's channels.
Oh, okay. Have you ever used vidIQ?
No.
Okay. So vidIQ and TubeBuddy are like the two competitors, but you can get a free vidIQ plugin and you can look at competitions data and like how it's trending. And that's how I saw your historical and like stuff about yours was through TubeBuddy, but I know vidIQ does it too. And that's how people like Tim Schmoyer go through and try and figure out what topics are best. And Roberto Blake uses it to narrow down sometimes his tags and titles. So if there's a lot of noise about like best camera 2016, he tries to narrow it in more for specific search results. So things like that might help you figure out the competition within a space.
Okay. I will check that out.
Were there any specific questions about your actual channel?
Well, I mean, I mentioned in the forum that I'm a little concerned that my format is sort of reaches only a niche audience. You know, where I mean, I get a lot of I get a lot of comments where people are telling me that I need to drop the humor for my videos and stuff like that. But I mean, I get more people commenting positive things than I do negative.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily know that that means too much. Is like maybe people are just, you know, not liking it and they're just clicking away and they're not bothering commenting and saying anything about it.
Do you know when you watch your retention, like the videos I saw, your retention was pretty good. So maybe if you went through certain videos retention and you saw like a drop off, and you can see, is that like a sciencey moment and they were just like, oh, this is too much science? Or was it like a weird humor moment? They were like, okay, well, that pun went too far, that, you know what I mean? So if you look at some of your videos, maybe where people are dropping off, so if they're not leaving a comment, maybe that's the part that they're like, no, I don't really,
Okay.
this video is not
See,
so
you
much
can actually
for me.
see where they leave.
Mm-hmm. So you,
Okay.
not individually, obviously, but you can see like where most people drop off. And you can also like, sometimes if you have something that's like, when certain people put those like hidden messages in, like the text that's only there for like 2 seconds, like you can see spikes in people's retention graphs because everyone's rewinding, trying to be like, what the heck are they putting in here? So you can see that kind of stuff in there.
Yeah, I've done a few single frame jokes before.
So that might help you figure out if people like, I mean, retention's never great on YouTube for anybody, for any videos, I don't think. But if there's certain ones that continuously drop off, it's a point you can see, is it just normal YouTube video, or is it science that was too hard, or humor? Maybe you'd be able to figure out something like that. But I think, to be honest, when I watch your videos, it reminds me a lot of like Bill Nye, where it's, you know, like funny and trying to be a little bit personal and that kind of thing. What YouTubers were you trying to compare yourself to when you were writing your channel review thing?
Well, I mean, obviously there's some big, there aren't a lot of physics channels around, at least big ones, but it's kind of hard to compare with most. But I think the channel that I'm probably closest to content-wise would be PBS Spacetime. At least the level of topics that I tend to cover.
Yeah. Because I feel like a lot of other channels, one, don't go as in depth. They just do like surface level kind of thing. And I feel like you're trying to, like with Spacetime and people that have like a ton of budget, they can be a little bit more serious, but they have like crazy graphics teams that are going to show you these amazing visuals and you like keep you engaged that way. Because I also try to go pretty in depth and try and figure out the same. I'm not as funny as you at all, so I try and figure out the same thing. Like, if I'm going to do this, like what visuals can I show, or how do I put personality or humor? Like, this is something I'm also trying to work out at the same time. So I don't think your humor is bad to have, because you also said your target audience, you said, was people that maybe didn't have all these classes. So you're trying to keep it lighter for them.
Right. I'm trying to bring those heavier topics to a more general audience. So, you know, instead of, I mean, I occasionally put equations in the screen, but I don't really do math with them. I just kind of display them and I talk about what they say and, you know, sort of turn them into visuals. And so I try to do that, but what I can say is that when I first write for a video, like I'll pick the topic, but then the first thing I do after that is I write the jokes. And I decide, you know, what clones I want in the video and so on. And so then after I have that, I can start actually, you know, filling in that information. And so I want the comedy to be, you know, the main focus.
And I think you also mentioned you were thinking about more stories. Like, was that stories for like individual clones or individual videos?
Videos, I mean, I kind of wanted this, when I originally started, I wanted this to be, or I sort of had this vision that I wanted it to become this sort of long narrative where if people, you know, if you watch one video, you can sort of understand what's going on. But if, you know, you're a long-term watcher, you've watched my, you know, entire, you know, set of content, then you get this bigger picture, because then there's parts of the story that refer back to other things. Like there, you know, are clones missing in newer videos because they died in older ones and stuff like that. And so I wanted that to be sort of a thing that developed through the show, and I don't know if I have the writing skill to take it where I want to take it.
And so is there stuff you think that we could help you with, like reviewing scripts or just talking out characters or stories or anything like that?
Maybe, because I mean, right now, you know, I've gotten pretty good at the clone shots. I'm actually gonna get Adobe Creative Cloud pretty soon, so I'll have a professional editor, which I haven't had before. Right now I'm limited to like very specific shaped cuts, and so hopefully, you know, now that I'm gonna have a professional program, I'll be able to shape whatever I want, you know, out of, you know, the splits and things. But I'm limited in the amount of time that I actually interact with my clones, and I want to interact with them more.
Okay.
I want there to be more dialogue. And I think that'll help, especially with some of the harder things where, you know, some of my videos can seem a little fast-paced because there isn't enough of that downtime in between. And so I want there to be downtime in between sections of videos so people have a chance to, you know, process what they just heard and saw. I think some clone dialogue might be the way to go there.
So kind of like in a lot of your videos, I've seen that you'll go over something and then your clone will kind of contradict what you just said. And then you're like, yes, but this is why. So like more moments like that where you're trying to anticipate the issues that the viewer might have.
Right. And so I'm trying to, so probably the clone that shows up the most is Question Clone, who is only capable of asking questions. And that's been kind of a challenge for me to write, because I want the clone to say something, but then I have to word it, I have to phrase it in the form of a question. And so it's kind of like Jeopardy, but it works out okay. And I think, you know, I think that helps, but I'm kind of hoping for more story there. So instead of them stepping in, and I kind of have this format where I'm basically talking to a bunch of people that are, you know, crazy excited about science, and it's sort of like a vloggy type format. But I'm kind of hoping to take it more scripted.
Okay.
With different camera angles and stuff.
Think About It said that he likes the nerd clone where he has a defined personality and costume, maybe defining them better through props and personality.
Okay. I've had a few. Yeah, nerd clone is definitely a fan favorite. So it's always, people get very excited when he shows up. So he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Do you, on social media or anything, do you ever talk as the different clones?
I do in the comments. If I want to be really kind of snotty to somebody, if I want to, you know, a smart aleck response, I will, you know, write the comment, and at the end I'll put just dash nerd clone, you know, just so that everybody knows. And so I try to, like I said, I try to respond to people, you know, in character, and as much as I can, so that I can keep that conversation going with my clones, with the viewers as well.
Yeah, I haven't gone to all your social media accounts and checked all that out, but I didn't know if like you could try and build some of their stories externally. I'm thinking of like Lizzie Bennett Diaries and things like that, where they kind of take some of their storytelling beyond just the video. So if there's beyond sciencey things that you wanted to like try and integrate and get more community, I think you're pretty good with community interaction though, especially with all the comment responses.
Right. I'm big on the conversation because I can't fit everything, especially with some of the topics that I do. I can't fit everything into the video. It's just not possible. And so when people, have follow-up questions or they want more details on something, the comments is the place to do that. And I'm really happy with how many comments I get on videos, how active the comment section is. Very passionate viewers.
So the two big things that you're looking to work on are like the story and involving that, and like efficiency with Adobe. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
I'd like to improve the quality of my animations, but I think I don't know how easily that can be done. Because I mean, right now I mostly use open source stuff. I use GIMP for photo editing and stuff for the graphics, and then but then I have to animate them all by keyframes in my editor, and that can be particularly difficult with some animations.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very difficult if I want something to be a projectile. Well, that's a parabola. That's very difficult to animate with a keyframe. Circles are much easier, but I'm really big on being accurate, so I give myself a lot of work.
So you're going to be using probably more expressions and stuff when you go to After Effects?
I'm not even sure what that means.
Okay.
So
I'm pretty new to this too. I'm learning a lot of it. But in After Effects, you can do keyframes themselves, or you can write expressions where you can link certain parameters to other parameters. Like if this thing scales, vertically this far, this will move this far this way. So you can write expressions and link things together. So you can actually code what you want certain things to do. You can find presets online for certain things, like a bounce. If you want to bounce, like people have written that stuff, and you can get that and put it in. There's also, it's more expensive, but I know some people use something called Newton, and it's like a physics engine that they have as a plugin, but it's pretty expensive. So it actually manipulates things just like with gears and shafts and gravity and all that, just the way you would in the real world. So if you had a block and it dropped down on what you considered was like a fractured thing, it would shatter. And you don't have to code any of that. You literally just built a thing and then dropped it and it shattered. But that's maybe another Patreon goal of yours at some point. I know that's one for me. But yeah, expressions might help you. And they do, they also have graphs. So you have, you can do the keyframes, but then you can also click on a little icon and come up with a keyframe graph, and you can manipulate the speed and the position through that way too.
Okay.
There's lots of things that I'm learning that you can do. You can create animation templates. So if you always have certain things, like if you want a projectile, like this is your projectile template, you can save that as a preset. And anytime you do a projectile, you can do that. And then you can have set in your expressions, or you can have controllers, which I haven't learned yet, so I can't tell you too much about it. But you can have little controllers and sliders where you can adjust things, like I want this to go faster or higher or whatever through the expressions that you're writing. So if you dive into After Effects, what I'm learning is you can start to build up a catalog of these things, so you don't have to redo it every single time. So you can just apply it to different animations that you do.
That's going to be a game changer for me, because right now I have to do literally everything manually.
That's what I was doing too. And now I'm trying to learn After Effects a little bit more. Other things in After Effects, you can, if you wanted like lower third kind of things, animations like that, you can make them in After Effects, save them as a live text template. And when you get this, you can ask me questions and I can try and walk you through some stuff I know. And everything, I think that's his name in the Slack.
Yeah.
He's like amazing at this stuff. He has tons of plugins. But so you can make a live text template, and then you can export it to Premiere, and then you can have the little motion graphic, and then you can manually change the text within. So if you wanted like lower thirds for your clones, you can have like a clone lower third, and every time they come up, just pull that one up and change the name.
Oh, that's nice.
So you could do things like that. What were the other things I wanted to tell you? Oh, one thing that took me a while to figure out, if you're drawing in Illustrator and you're putting things into After Effects, if you say retain composition layers, there's anchor points for everything that you have. And if you do retain layers, then the anchor point's going to be in the middle of each layer, instead of it all saying that's the middle of like the frame.
Okay.
Because I used to have things over in the corner and they would be rotating about there, and I would be like, what the heck? So I recently learned if you do that, then everything has its own centered anchor point. And anchor points are going to be a big deal when you're trying to move things around and animate them. You can also, in After Effects, like if you have like, I do little side blobs, so I'll have a side blob here, do a keyframe, and I can move it physically and then do more keyframes. And you can have it do different slide-ins that you want to, and it can fill in keyframes in between. So there's a lot you can do. I can talk to you more about it when you get it and can actually see it.
Okay. I was reading about shapes and paths and things like that, which was going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
For me, but I had no idea about these other things, so this is going to be a big deal.
So the other big thing that I learned was shapes and paths. So when you have an Illustrator file and you bring it into After Effects, it's regular vectorness, and it gives you like three or four things you can do. You can like scale it, move it, change the opacity, like I think 4 things total. You can convert that to a shape layer. So then the vector becomes an After Effects shape, and it hides the Illustrator file that you have. And now you have tons of things that you can do. You can actually, like, if let's just say a rectangle that has a stroke on it, you can make the stroke appear slowly. You can like move the trim around. You can do way more things with it. So if you have an Illustrator file and you convert the shape in After Effects, it lets you do a lot more. These are all things that I had to find out slowly.
Right. I know in GIMP, it just makes normal, standard graphics. But whenever I have to zoom in on a graphic, I have to make a point to make it a vector graphic in Inkscape or something, because you zoom in and it just gets blurry.
Yeah. And again, I can tell you more of this stuff later too, but there's a button in After Effects that you hit that says continuously rasterize, because if you zoom in without hitting that button, everything's blurry and you're like, what the heck? This is a vector file. You just click one button and you have to click it for all the layers, and then it works. It doesn't automatically do it because it takes it longer for it to render. So it figures you don't want to do that to the end. I'm going to ask the chat I can just chat. If you guys have suggestions about his channel, you can type them in, or if you have questions or comments or anything, there's more and more people joining chat.
Okay. I don't think I can see.
I can get questions.
The chat.
After Effects is my hero. It says neurotransmissions. So those of you that might just be joining, do you have tips about storytelling on your channels and how to progressively make longer stories? You can ask them specific questions too.
I'm not even sure what to ask. I'm just getting started with Adobe. I haven't even gotten it yet because I've been dealing with computer part issues all month. And so that's been kind of a nightmare. And so I haven't even downloaded the 7-day free trial just to see what it's like, because my computer isn't working. I am on a laptop right now.
Well, if you had questions about your channel or any of that too, I think some people joined a little late. So if you have any of those questions too, you can ask.
Right. So what I was saying earlier was that I wanted to create more storyline, more dialogue, so that the videos aren't quite as intense. Like I'm not necessarily spending the whole time talking to the audience directly. I'm sort of having a conversation with a clone, and someone's just, the viewers just maybe, I don't know, eavesdrop or something, or eavesdropping on the conversation, and then I can come back and forth between, where I'm talking to the audience and where I'm not, sort of create some more laid back scenes in the videos. And I'm not sure exactly how to do that. So.
And people in the chat were asking what you were using before Adobe because they joined a little late. And then HTM School said they love the integration between Premiere, After Effects, and Photoshop. And that's the other thing. There's a Creative Cloud library. So you have like your branding, like you have your colors and that kind of scheme. In your library, you can have color palettes set. So you always have the same colors. And you can also have like your logo and like general graphics that you're always going to use.
Right, because I've always had this blue and orange thing going. And that just stems from when the logo was being designed. I had a really good old friend of mine who's an art person design it for me. I basically told him, this is the name of my channel, and I want the logo to be a circle. Go. and he delivered. I love the logo. It doesn't show up sometimes very well. You can't really see it very well when it's small, but I really like how it looks overall. And so I haven't changed it in 4 years. But then we went with orange and blue for that, and so then I just sort of made that my color palette for the whole channel.
Think About It said, he said, I know it's a bit of a herder, but when doing a setup in the beginning of the video pays off towards the end, works a lot better than one-liners, in my opinion.
Okay, it's good to know. So I guess just to answer the question about what I use now before I get Adobe, I use Sony Movie Studio, which is like the light version of Sony Vegas. And that's just basically like Premiere. It doesn't have any After Effects kind of features or anything. And then I use GIMP instead of Photoshop. And sometimes Inkscape instead of Illustrator. And so, I'm at least familiar with what the software titles are for Adobe, but I never had the money to buy them. So I had to go with the cheap stuff. If an animation is going to be really complicated, if I think that I'm not going to be able to do it with keyframes, I will code it in Python and then record the video that plays out, record the animation that plays out with OBS.
I think that's pretty cool. I'm looking into doing more stuff in Python, and even I really like all their graphs and stuff. And is that how you make most of those things? Any graphs for that timeline that you did recently?
Well, graphs don't really display very well. It makes them great, but when you actually go to put them in a video, the lines, the curve in the graph is 1 pixel thick. And wow. So if you don't have the video when you're watching it, if you don't have it set to HD, you won't see the graph. Mm. And so I make a point to make graphs in Excel so that I can thicken the lines a little bit. But other than that, I just make sure that, if I have objects, 3-dimensional objects, the visual package has a whole set of, objects you can make that are 3-dimensional. You can determine their size, and it does all sorts of stuff. And you can build more complex shapes from simpler ones. It takes a little finesse, but the newest version has textures, so you can text your objects, which I've been really excited to play around with.
So you can probably if you still wanted to do that stuff in Python, you can probably import that into After Effects and use Cinema 4D and
Okay.
be able to like animate that stuff. I've not worked at all with 3D stuff, but I think they're trying to do more integrations of that way.
Okay. But yeah, so I like to use Python as much as I can because I like the physics that I'm displaying to be accurate. I know that a lot of times when, you know, bigger high budget shows make animations, they just kind of fake their way through it and, you know, make it look kind of like how they want it to look, and it's okay, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this thing about, you know, my visuals are scientifically accurate. It's sort of a thing that I've set up, and it pins me into a corner sometimes, especially with waves. I have a really hard time coding waves, and so I've got some ideas to work around it, involving actual demonstrations in the real world. But I can't code waves. I just can't.
What happens when you start to code them?
Things don't look right. I mean, I guess they look accurate, but then in the process of looking accurate, there isn't as much you can gain from the visual as a viewer. And so I've tend not to include them because, you know, I'll make them and I'll be like, oh, yeah, oh, that's useless. Okay, moving on.
Because you don't want them to like try and figure that out while you're talking and get distracted and not understand it and then move on.
Right, and so that they don't tend to make visual sense when they're accurate. And if I needed to make them, in order to make them make visual sense and be accurate, I'd have to spend weeks coding it, and I just don't have that kind of time.
Yeah. People in the chat were saying, have you tried Blender at all?
I have not tried Blender. I just heard about Blender recently, so I was gonna test it out. Does someone in the chat use Blender?
Miriam was talking about it, and I know ProtoSurge was talking about it earlier. She said that you can code directly into it as well as animate traditionally.
Okay.
And then there's also somebody said you can make some 3D animations with Three.js if you're handy with JavaScript too. I actually run Python on my server to do computations and run the 3D viz in the web browser with Three.js.
Okay.
And then they pointed out that masks in After Effects are going to help you a lot with your clones.
Right.
Multiple clones in one shot.
The Sony movie studio that I use, like I mentioned earlier, it only lets me do like circles and squares and rectangles and ovals, and you know, and so I've been very, I've had to be very creative when I have to touch them or touch something that they touched or something like that. I've had to be really, really careful. There's a couple times when I just totally nailed it, and then there's other times when it just looks awful. But it will be nice to be able to actually just shape around things how I need to, and not have to worry about it.
And people are saying they'd be happy to chat with you more in the Slack too if you have questions about Blender and Cinema 4D and Python and stuff. So you can dive deeper.
Yeah, I hope when I gain some skills, I'll be able to improve my intro animation.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of, I would like to make it a little more three-dimensional eventually. I know viewers freak out when you change things, but
then they'll be
I would
okay.
like to, yeah, they'll survive. But that takes much more skill and software than I currently have. So, and I've heard good things about Cinema 4D. So,
which thing do you think you'd want to work on more first? Trying to get scripting stuff, or after your computer problems are fixed?
I think the script stuff is going to be more long term.
Mm-hmm.
So I think animating and cuts and masks and things like that are going to be things I can pick up a little faster. Script writing is a long term kind of skill. That's something I'll have to just play around with, and I'll take suggestions from anybody, but that's not something I can just I'll do this while I go try this, and then I have the skill. Like it's it's going to take some time to get comfortable with.
And you were asking if you should keep the humor or not, and what makes you happiest when you're like making the videos and writing the scripts? Like if you made it with less humor, would you even like creating it as much?
No, not at all.
So I think that's your like, that's your style of videos. I think you need to stick with it.
Okay.
Oh, and in your channel review thing, you also were talking about trying to make this into like more of a job. I want to know, would you be interested in doing like speaking engagements or consultations or like anything like that? Because that's what I've seen other people like Bozeman Science and other people try and do to supplement the meager dollars of AdSense.
Right. I mean, I'd always, sort of suspected that would be something that I would end up doing eventually, but I just assumed that there would be something you'd have to be bigger for. It's something that people invite you to. It's not something that you sort of go out and find.
I think you can try and at kind of any point. I know Sarah wrote a book, and her channel is smaller and stuff, and she's gone out and done speaking engagements about her book. Developmental Enthusiasts in the Slack if you want to ask her some questions. I've done lots of free speaking engagements, and now I'm looking to transition after South by Southwest if we get picked to like more paid ones, because I have 10 years of speaking experience. So you got to start somewhere.
Right. Right. And I was considering the South by Southwest thing, and then I ended up realizing I ended up backing out of it, realizing that I don't know if I can actually get the week off of work, and it's just all this,
Right.
And so I just just kind of backed out of everything. But I'm much more open in the summer time.
And looking at your channel, you have a lot of skills that I think other education people would love to learn and have. Like, how do I make these videos? Definitely don't sell yourself short because you're not like a giant YouTube channel. You have so many skills. You have probably way more skills than some of the bigger YouTubers have, because they kind of do like interviews, or you know what I mean? So if this is something you wanted to turn into something bigger, that might be an avenue. Chat, do you have any other suggestions for ways to like broaden out an education YouTube channel? Practical Poplin says we all need to work on scripts.
Right. Another thing about doing talks at South by Southwest or wherever is, are people actually going to want to come and listen to me talk?
So what kind of topics would you want to talk about? I think you have to figure out what you're excited to talk about, and then yes, I think people would probably want to hear you talk. People, I think, like hearing people that have different experiences and they're really excited about it. That's why so many people do well on YouTube. Do you have anything in particular that you would just like love to just like?
Well, I know in my classes, because for those who don't know, I'm also a teacher in the main part of the day, but in there, I'm sort of wrangled into this course description. I have to teach this and this and that, and I get a little freedom with order and stuff. But there's very specific stuff I have to talk about. And at the end of the semester, I try to work in this day where it's just a Q&A all day, where I'm like, hey, just ask me questions. It could be about science or whatever, just ask, and I will try to answer them all. And it's probably my favorite day of the entire course. So I don't know if there's any way I can do that for money. That would be nice.
Well, in your thing too, you said part of the reason you started your channel is to teach things you couldn't teach in the classroom, right?
Right.
So if you have a skill and a way to go be like teaching beyond, and the chat's giving some suggestions for things. They said for scripts, they highly recommend the YouTube Creator Academy course, Production Planning, for tips on storyboarding and scripts. Practical Poppins said if you're excited to give a talk, people are going to be happy to listen. And then they said reaching out to publications that align with your channel, video goals, and creating some kind of relationships where you write posts or share your videos is a pretty solid way. So I guess if you're going to be like a science communicator, like a freelance science communicator kind of person, would you always want to work for yourself, or would you ever consider going to like a crash course, SciShow, something like that?
I actually have applied for a couple jobs at SciShow. Didn't get them, but I just assumed that there was a better applicant. That happens. But I mean, I wouldn't mind working for someone. I want to do something that I find rewarding, which is, I chose teaching because I enjoy being in front of people. I enjoy teaching science and talking about science and stuff. And I don't, anytime I think about, giving up and trying to be an engineer or something, I just get sad about it because I mean, I could do it, but I don't want to. And I'd rather not make as much and do something I enjoy. And so that's really what it comes down to. It's not necessarily about being my own boss, although that has its perks. But it's more about just doing something I enjoy doing, and I feel like I'm adding something to society. And as long as the job has that, which I think any job at Crash Course or SciShow would, I would be okay with that.
So general life goals is to excitedly share knowledge. That's
right.
What we're going for. Okay.
That's what brings the most joy to my life. So
okay. So chat, think of ways to do that and actually make some money if you're not just like beyond teaching. And while they're thinking that, someone wanted to know where you get the inspiration for your jokes.
Where I get the inspiration. Well, funny story, actually. Originally, it wasn't supposed to be. I was just supposed to be just a regular educational YouTuber, and that was going to be it. And then the camera turned on, and all of a sudden, I just kind of went nuts. Maybe it was nervousness or something, but I went a little crazy in front of the camera, and it kind of just clicked in my head. Well, instead of fighting this, why don't I just embrace it? And so every clone of me is like an aspect of me, of my personality. Kind of like how, authors talk about writing characters and their characters are a part of them or whatever. My clones are a part of me. They're something that, I am maybe socially not allowed to let out, in public. And so I feel like the channel is a place for me to do that. And so what I do is I just focus on that aspect of myself, and the character just kind of happens.
So what happens to the parts of yourself that you've killed off?
I don't know. Maybe they just weren't, they weren't survivors, I guess. Survival of the fittest,
The chat has not come up with more ways to monetize, probably because we're all trying to figure that part out.
Right. Makes sense.
But the big ones that I've seen so far are either being a consultant or going out to give talks or having a book or, you know, something like that, which are all harder things to do.
Right. I mean, I have an ebook that I put out maybe 2 years ago, and I've updated it every year since, but it's a little more difficult stuff. So it's, you know, the more mathy stuff that I don't necessarily put in the videos, but, you know, if people are interested, they can move on from my videos and go to that and learn a little more depth into the topics. And so basically I wrote it as this is what you need if you're finishing up, you know, undergrad physics degree and you're thinking about going on to grad school. Read this book, see if there's anything in here maybe you didn't learn. Probably the case, because undergrad programs, every undergrad program I've ever seen in physics leaves you grossly unprepared for grad school. And so I wrote it as that. It was originally just supposed to be that, and I took me, 6 years to write it. But I started writing it before I started the YouTube channel. So, but like I said, I put that out 2 years ago, and it's been pretty successful. But it's not like it's anything I would be able to give a talk about somewhere. It's not through a publisher or anything. It's just self-published.
When you said that, I instantly could see it talk though in my head. Like you're in front of like a bunch of people about to graduate and you're like, are you guys even ready? Do you even know what you don't know? And then you could kind of like go over like, do you know any of these things? No, this is not good. Like kind of like jokey kind of thing like that, where you're trying to explain, like piece it together for them. Even if the talk was just like the end of their career there or the beginning of grad school, and you're just like, I'm piecing together all the things that you just tried to cram in your head for the past 4 years. I don't know if you can condense that down though into a talk.
Maybe I probably could. I guess again, this just comes back to, do people really want to listen to someone talk about that?
How many talks have you watched? Because that one I think would be very interesting. I've seen lots of talks that were just like horribly boring. Mostly because the people there were horribly boring.
Right.
But yeah, if at the end of undergrad or even the beginning of grad school that somebody was like, I'm going to piece this all together. Because I think of like the video where there's a channel that goes like the whole history of physics, the whole history of math, like, and has the map and kind of pieces it together. I mean, I've taken a lot of those courses and it kind of clicks and brings it, you know, links it together, instead of like just having thermo here, or, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's because no class does that for you. No class is like, we're going to unite this for you. So yes, I would gladly go see a talk that did that.
Okay.
And
I guess I have a confidence problem then.
Chat, would you go see this talk? I know Tim would go see it. He might be asleep by now, but I know Tim would go see this talk.
That's good to know.
But if you ever have ideas for talks and want to like run them by us, or even do like, you can do a private hangout or something and try and run through anything, just let us know. And like,
yeah, because I mean, I've watched recordings of, you know, TED Talks and things like that. They're not all great, but occasionally you run into a good one.
And those are TED Talks too. Those are like Destin goes and gives talks, and he brings his backwards bicycle, and his talk is just like, how do you rewire your brain? Like, that's it. He brings a backwards bicycle and he caters it towards whoever he's talking to. He's gone to like, I think like car places, tractor places, like all kinds of corporations that you never would think would want an education YouTuber to come and give this talk. I mean, the joining physics together is a different thing, but yeah, if you gave a talk about how to get people inspired about topics that they might not know about and are really complex, like something like that, there's lots of different things that that you might be able to touch on? Sorry, the chat is saying more things. They've watched a lot of TED Talks and had no academic familiarity and still found them very interesting. So that style, they said, might be a starting point. And that talks doesn't have to be the way you go if that's not the kind of thing you like, but
it's an option.
Yeah. I was just trying to think of other ways, because that seemed to be one of the things that you were going for, is trying to make this more sustainable.
Right. I mean, I would like to, and I mean, I know it's going to be a lot of work regardless. So I'm prepared for that. I feel like it's very discouraging when you watch channels that started at the same time as you, or they started after you, and they got super successful way faster than you did. And it's very difficult to not compare yourself.
Right.
I struggle with that on a daily basis.
I do too. One of the things that I try and think about is your videos also are a little more in depth, and I know that I could grow if I did more clickbaity kind of things. It's easier to make content that maybe the masses would like, but I know that the people that watch content that we make, it makes more of an impact on them. Does that make sense? Like, that's kind of what I hold on to in those moments personally.
Right. I guess, yeah, I mean, the people I'm trying to reach are people that, maybe, they watch some other science videos, maybe, Veritasium or Physics Girl or something, and they get to the end of a 4 or 5 minute video and they're kind of left wanting. They want something more. They didn't get enough, and so maybe they can come to my channel and get some more detail.
Yeah, some of us have thrown around the idea of how, as an education community, could we link those channels together? Because you need those inspiring, like, oh my God,
right.
channels, because that's how people find it and are like, this is something I actually want to like learn and know more about. But we wish like we could link those to, okay, now you want to learn some more, go
right.
watch this. Practical Poppin says, or even running small group meetup talks, events for companies, perhaps. Just another idea to throw out there. I think it would be less for maybe small people events. Like, since you're a teacher, you could probably teach a lot of teachers how to do stuff like you're doing.
Right.
On maybe a smaller level.
Right. I mean, I did it on a budget. I mean, it took me a while to figure out lighting and stuff, but I think my first couple of years, it only cost me, I managed to get everything that I needed for under $1,000, which I feel pretty good about.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to, higher quality videos, that's a pretty small budget. And so between the lights and, the stuff in the background in my very early videos is stuff that I just had laying around the house. And I'm like, I'll put this in here. Oh, whiteboard. Yeah, I'm going to put that up on the wall. That'll be great. Stuff like that. But it was basically just lights, camera, and software. And I basically got the cheapest stuff I could find. And so, that's working on a budget, I guess, is a skill I could teach some teachers. But
I think that is definitely, like, Tim and I have given talk at libraries and schools and stuff about that kind of stuff, and it's definitely something that people wanted to hear. Did you have questions about lighting and other shots? Like, I'm not the person to answer. My lighting's not great, but we have people in the chat that might be able to help, because I think that was another thing you had questions about. Maybe
right.
adding camera angles and putting lights in certain places. Chat, you're going to have to handle this one.
Right. So I have this problem. You look up tutorials on lighting online, and it's all about this 3-point lighting. Well, that's great if your person is sitting still and you can put the lights in exactly the spot that you need them. But I move around. Sometimes in the middle, sometimes I've got me and a clone on the side, sometimes I'm in the background. Like, I need lighting everywhere. and so right now I have really bright lights in the room, and a lot of that is because my camera is a cheap camcorder. I don't have a DSLR camera or anything, and so it doesn't work very well in low light. And so I've got really bright lights, like hundreds of watts equivalent anyway, shining. I got two big umbrella lights shining on the wall, and then I've got two big umbrellas shining downward, sort of at an angle on a reflector that also shines up on me, so I can light me from top and bottom. And so there's a lot of light in this room, and I still end up moving into places where there are shadows and it doesn't look very good. You can tell there are lights in the room, which is very distracting. And another thing is, even with all this lighting and post-production, you know, color correction and all that stuff, I still can't quite get it to look professional. It still looks homemade. And I don't know exactly what it is that's wrong. And so if I can't, you know, pinpoint what the problem is, I can't fix it.
The Good News Channel said, my wife just fixed our lighting with plastic bags and paper to make them soft lights. Pictures in Slack to come. Might be worth looking into stage lighting tutorials, but they're very creative. But like you are very creative with your clones and what you can touch, that might be another thing that you have to get creative about. I don't know if Rocket Jump Film School talks about lights, but I think there's might be 3-point lighting too. I don't know if there's just stage lighting. I'm not good with lights at all. The lights in my videos are different, and I try and have Tim light them for me. So I'm not one to help you with that. But you think, though, if you had the lighting right, it would
well, I mean,
I don't
even know if it's the lighting or if it's the camera or if it's just the way that I'm recording it, or I don't know. And so I need somebody that knows these things to just watch a video and just tear it apart.
Okay.
You know, at the core level, you're like, oh, well, the lighting is this is a problem here. And I don't have anyone around to critique anything. And I don't have a lot of places around here that, no one around here does this stuff.
I think one thing that's going to help is when you can do different cuts, and you said you're going to do different camera angles too. Possibly, this is just my opinion, maybe because jump cuts are so YouTube-y, like maybe that's what's making it feel more of like a at-home YouTube thing, where you see maybe more professional videos. Like I just started doing more like panning shots and like shots that move and aren't just static me. And okay. I was like, oh, well, I like this a lot more. That's just something I've noticed about mine that I thought was better than all these static shots. Tim does it sometimes. He'll zoom in and change focus on things. And I'm like, oh, there's movement in this shot that's not me. Like the camera is doing something different. And that's, to me, made some of our stuff look better.
Okay. I know my camera can film in 24 frames per second, but my editing program can't edit at 24 frames per second. And so I have this weird thing where like I film at 30, but then the editor renders it at like 29.8 or something, and then things look funky because I lose, a fraction of a frame every so often, and it just kind of blurs it all together. But I think if maybe I could improve it, if I could get everything to be exactly 24 frames per second, it might help. I have a feeling that might be part of my problem, but I don't know.
The chat says, do you want it to look more cinematic, or what kind of professional are you going for? Good News Channel says, I can watch your video and critique it to death if you want, but to do that, I want to still remain friends. And I don't want to come across as too harsh on tiny things. And then,
I can handle criticism.
And then the easiest way to achieve hashtag professional look is to get some depth of field.
Right, and that's something that my camera can't do. It's not capable. I mean, I found, you know, manual focus and manual exposure and white balance and all that stuff, but I can't get it to blur the background.
People that record on mobile phones, if you're in the chat, like I know some mobile phones sometimes are good. Like you can get cheaper lenses and stuff for that. I think like a lot of vloggers use that. I don't know if that's an option because you don't want to obviously get like crazy lenses or other things. So if anyone maybe knows cheap workarounds, I don't know if that would be something you'd be interested in doing.
I don't know if my camera can do any of that, but we'll give it a shot. When I talk about my camera, I don't know if anyone realizes how cheap it is. It was a what, $250 camera 4 years ago. And so it's your basic standard like home video camcorder that I just made sure could do HD. And I didn't even realize it had these other, you know, white balance and exposure features until later, which, you know, if you watch my super old videos, you'll see how horrible it looks. But it's just a cheap standard camcorder, which, you know, but I don't want to buy a new camera if it's not going to fix the problem.
Yeah. People that use After Effects more than me in the chat, is there stuff maybe like filter kind of effects things that you could put in on your post video that you can do color correction a lot better, which who are the two people? Brian from American Survival Adventure Science was telling me about color correction and things to do, and Draw Curiosity too. So when you get Creative Cloud, that's stuff you can do. You can probably work with other effects there that might kind of make it a little bit more crisp for things that your camera can't do. So maybe that would help.
I know when I started maybe a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I started doing the color correction, like the white balance and increasing the contrast a little bit and stuff like that. And that's been, that did wonders for my picture quality. But it's, like I said, it still looks home video-y. And I'm not sure how to fix it.
Well, I think your animations look really good.
Thanks. I spend a lot of time on those. It takes maybe a whole day, at least a whole day, maybe two, to make the graphics in GIMP, and then at least another 1 to 2 days to animate them with keyframes in Movie Studio. So I'm hoping that with Adobe I can, you know, do some of my regular stuff. Like I have fades and things that I do, transitions that I use a lot. And if I can, you know, create my own custom transitions, that would be really nice. I don't know if Adobe can do that, but.
Yeah, and people have pointed out, I think it was Miriam that told me about, I think it was Mr. Horse, does some, there's like free plugins and templates and things you can get too that you can put in that animate text or create transitions, and there's already a lot of effects that are already in there. Things I'm learning every day. But yes, hopefully it will be a lot easier for you.
That'll save me some time at least.
Yeah. I think the only critique I had in some of your videos is the music was too loud for me at some points.
Yeah, so people have said that. I think 12 Tone told me that recently at one point. I don't hear it. Like, it sounds quiet on my computer. And so I don't know exactly what's wrong and why the music is too loud on other people's computer.
I don't know.
But I mean, I can try lowering the volume on the next video and the music volume and see how it goes.
And to be True 12 tone, you know, does music, and I don't particularly like music in the background of most videos. So it might be a personality thing too.
Okay. I felt like my videos improved like times 10 when I put music behind them.
Okay.
And I know that I have a really hard time watching videos that don't have music. I need something in there to fill the audio void.
Mm, that makes sense. Because, yeah, I don't have silences in my videos because of that. Because I don't want there to be gaps in audio.
Right. And I know that there's been a few moments where I've wanted to like pause on a graphic and just not talk. And I've increased the volume of the music sort of dramatically just to sort of, you know, bring some emphasis to the moment. But and so that's something I like about having music. I definitely wouldn't want to go back to not having music at all. But it's just kind of my style. But I can play with the volume and see maybe Adobe will do something different with the music that Movie Studio isn't doing. So
You can also put a poll in the Slack in the critiques channel and see, because I feel like music is such a subjective, like people like it or don't, or it's loud or it's quiet. So you can just maybe get a general feel. And if people in your comments section aren't being like, oh my God, the music's so loud, then you're probably okay.
No one in the comments has ever complained. I get comments about my voice audio. Maybe once every few months, someone will say, "Oh man, you know, fix your audio," but then they don't tell me what's wrong with it. And it's not, well, that's not constructive. Thank you, but I don't know how to fix an unknown problem. And so I don't know if someone has better ears than me. There's something that I'm not hearing in my voice that's a problem. I can tell that my voice doesn't sound as good as say, like, you know, Hank Green's voice on Vlogbrothers or something. But I mean, I don't know, that could just be my microphone.
What are you using?
I use a lav microphone that I tape to my chest so you can't see it on camera, but it's underneath. I tape it to my chest underneath my shirt so you can't see it, but it's corded. It isn't even wireless. It's just got this 20-foot cord on it that I can plug right into the camera, and I can move around with it. But it works much better than the microphone in the camera.
Yeah.
But it was a $30 microphone, so I don't know if that means anything.
Well, I mean, I didn't hear noise in the background or anything. Like I said, the level of the music compared to the level of your voice was the only thing that audio-wise that I had an issue with. But I didn't, like, sometimes you can hear noise, fans, rustling. Like you couldn't hear, like, it's not like your lavs on your shirt rustling around, because sometimes that happens with people's lav mics when they clip it in. I personally didn't hear any of that in any of the videos I've ever watched.
It does record noise, and then I go into Audacity, another free bit of software, and I remove the noise before I even put it into Movie Studio. So I make a point to get rid of the noises, like the air conditioning vent and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of the background noise gets removed in post.
I think it's been like an hour. So do you have any other topics that you want to cover, or questions, or anything you want to ask chat? Did this help you? Were there other things that you wanted to go over?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot about Adobe during this conversation, which is great. And it looks like some people in the chat are going to tear me apart. So I think that'll be positive. Yeah, this has been productive.
Okay. And you can put scripts in script swap if you want, and you can ask specific questions too. and hopefully people can help you out that way. And I think they created an ongoing script swap too. There's a form you can fill out. So if you do want to see have somebody see the progression of your scripts so they know oh, these are the clone characters, you might be able to do a longer script swap kind of thing.
Okay. I'm a little nervous to show my scripts to anybody. I actually had to when I did the collab with Looking Glass Universe back in February, and I was like, "Don't judge me," I do color coding and all sorts of stuff to so that I know exactly what I'm going to do and what's going to be on the screen and stuff when I'm filming it. And so there's yellow means graphic and red means animation and stuff like that. And so if I were to put one of my scripts up on the Slack, it would be very colorful. I don't know how people would react to that, but I guess I won't know until I try, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do the same. I've used Scrivener. I've had that for writing for a long time, and I color code everything in there. And then I also have a little box where I say what every scene's going to be. So I have the same very elaborate scheme, and then I just try and copy and paste it into a Google Doc for review. But yeah, color coding probably helps too if you're going to have different clones and dialogue. Letting people know who's the one talking is probably going to be helpful. Oh, the Good News Channel says that sounds like an amazing way to do it. They love to hear more about your system.
Okay.
So
I'll be sure to share at least one of my scripts soon.
Chat, do you have any final words or questions or anything before we wrap up? You have to give them a minute or two because it's a lag. But yeah. I really enjoy your channel a lot. I think the animations are great, and I love how far in depth you go with people. And I like that you refer back to old videos and you string jokes through them and how you build your community. I think all that stuff is great. I don't have any overarching oh my God, this thing was terrible and you should change it kind of thing. And then I think it's the same for everyone to grow, just do more collabs and things like that. But hopefully people will watch your videos and do what you want and tear them apart a little bit and try and give you feedback how to be a little bit more professional looking.
Right. I am open to constructive criticism.
But I don't think we got anything else from the chat. And
okay.
Some people are going to watch this the next day, especially probably draw curiosity. So you might want to come back to the comment section of the video and see what they have to say. They said this was a great conversation and they hope you have a lovely night. So thank you so much, chat, for sticking around with us and giving us some feedback. So Matt is going to be hosting the next one of these because I won't be in town. That is Wednesday, August 16th. And it's going to be reviewing Think About It, his channel. So we'll see you guys then. Bye, everybody.